I started reaching out to people with podcasts and saying, hey, the world wants to know your story. How about I come on your podcast and ask about your story? And they were like, yo, we love the idea. Is there any way you could do it tomorrow? And I was like, you know what? Every part of me wanted to make an excuse and say I couldn't do it. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to accept this challenge. And then I did it, and I crushed it.
All right, today I'm super excited to chat with Tom Boyd. He's the content producer and strategist for Margaritaville Resorts, but before he was creating content for Jimmy Buffett's brand, he helped a friend by the name of Asher Roth become a brand as a multi-platinum recording artist. And in the process, he's able to work with people like Scooter Braun and Justin Bieber before they were cool. But the most interesting part is how all of this really ties into his podcast, Creators Are Brands, a show that explores how digital storytellers are building brands online. How are you doing today, Tom?
Man, I'm doing wonderfully. Thank you for that intro, man. Yeah, dude, I'm stoked to be on the show. I love this content format, and yeah, just excited to jam out about it.
Awesome, man. Yeah, a lot of people listen to the show because they're interested in either starting a podcast for content marketing reasons or like personal branding reasons. But that segment really diverges at that point where people want to create content to promote either their company's brand or they want to be the brand. So for everyone listening, could you explain kind of what the creator economy is? Because I think that's really at the foundation of this conversation, and also why creators are brands.
Coming in hot, I like it. All right, so my like understanding of my thinking around the creator economy kind of shifts every single day. It's like kind of this ongoing thing because I'm like, wait, are founders creators? Like are like brand, like I'm starting to see like, the way I see it is like, and the way I talk about it is the majority of the, like what I see a creator is a storyteller. It's someone that's able to capture someone's attention online, whether it's memes, whether it's TikToks, whether it's long form YouTube videos, whether it's podcasts. And it's these individuals that are building audiences, building a platform that has trust with them. And in that trust, they're able to monetize that trust. And I like to talk to impact-driven creators that have a teaching component, that have like an educational component to their brand, which most do nowadays because it's a great way to monetize your brand. Now, the creator economy as a whole, it encompasses not only the creators, but the people that are empowering them, from the founders to the tools to the platforms, the investors, the capital that is all going into this world, because all of these big entities are seeing the trust and the attention going to the creators. So where there's trust, there's way to make money. So like, there's all these tools that are coming around to empower the creators. And what I'm starting to see is the storytellers are the ones that have the power. Back in the day, it was the people sitting around the campfire sharing the stories to keep the tribe safe, right? Now it's people sharing these stories to entertain, educate, and empower the future. And I love it. I started as I fell into the industry, like you said, working with Asher and Scooter Braun. I got a hard knock education. I started in health and phys ed. Didn't think I had a creative bone in my body until I met this artist. Then I started putting my ideas into his brand as a creator behind the scenes. And then I started making my own YouTube channel, but it was more complementing what I was doing. It wasn't like, oh, you could build a media company around this. It was more like, this is my curiosity. Then I started becoming a freelancer based off of people saying, hey, can you do that for me? Then big brands like Margaritaville saw it and said, hey, can you do that for us? And like, I started working with them. So I have all these perspectives of like putting out your creative ideas into the world. And then last year, I read Lee Jin's article around the creator economy. I forget which one it is. I think it's like her take on the 100 True Fans. She has a lot of great ones. And she's kind of like a prolific writer and investor, kind of paving the way for like what the creator economy is becoming. And then I just realized, I was like, wait, like I've been messing up. Like I've been helping everyone else build their audience with my creative ideas. The creators, the people that really have the platform and the voice are the ones that are building their own audience. And then, so I was like, I was like, I have all the skill sets to do this. I love the individual creator. You know, even working with Asher, working with other artists along the way, people are like, hey, whenever I talk to you, I feel like I can run through a wall with like a new idea. Like I'm so excited. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to channel my insight to this, you know, putting your ideas out into the world as a creative person, and my ability to kind of show people what's possible and make some content around it. So that's where Creators Are Brands is, and that's where my shorts are for bonus footage. Man, that was a rant. I'll
Ah, man, I love it. I love it. Before we hopped on to record, we were talking about how you're really plugged in with a lot of the up and coming TikTokers that have all the creativity, but they have none of the business sense yet. It's almost
Yep.
like Vine 2.0. But I imagine a lot of people listening might not be in that position. Like they might be trying to just figure out content marketing for their business.
Yep.
And I want to kind of bridge the gap. I want to kind of
Cool.
pause and take it both directions of like, I've got the creativity, but I don't understand the business, and figure out what we can do to help them. But what if you understand the business, but you don't understand the creativity, and you're kind of maybe a little bit behind the times in terms of content marketing and leveraging video and stuff like that? Let's start there with that kind of like B2B marketer in mind. What do you see that most people are getting wrong in their content marketing, and like what could they be doing better to leverage themselves as storytellers and less of like textbooks? I feel like so many
Yeah.
people kind of result to just like the benefits instead of the story.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's going to sound like I'm doing a sales pitch for what it is your company does. But, bro, the easiest way to start to get into the content world is to start a podcast. And you can start a podcast with your cell phone. It can be a 10-minute show. It can be, you know, there's so many ways to get into the world. It can be, but like what I see is like, so what does content do? It builds trust. Why do we build trust? Because we're trying to build relationships with people. Not only relationships with key decision makers, but with our audience, people, you know, actual customers. And what I find, something that, like, if you spend 30 minutes, 45 minutes asking a person that you want to ask questions, like you
Yeah.
spend that whole hour like letting them tell their story, a relationship is built, trust is built. You know, not even like before you even post that thing, before the world even sees it, between your business and this individual decision maker within your niche, you know, your industry, whatever. It's the greatest sleeper tool of podcast is the ability to network and build relationships. I
Yes.
have friends, Zach Hanavar, Colin and Samir, multiple people that I like that are leaders in the creator economy now. I interviewed 3 years ago, and like I'm still homies with them. I've done creative projects.
Yeah.
I've literally created like businesses with, like, you know, business concepts with these guys. After you ask someone questions for an hour, you know, majority of them are like, yo, this is cool. Like, we should do this more often. And then you just develop a relationship. So I think that's the sleeper. Then obviously the storytelling, you learn more about your market as you're getting, you know, you're looking someone in the eye and you're asking them questions about their story. All of that insight will help how you frame your business, how you think about your market and your customers. I think it's like dude, podcasts are still so underrated. It's like it
Yeah.
blows my mind. I'm like, yo, I can sit here and have a conversation with someone I want to have a conversation with. It's an excuse to like have this conversation, and then it's also content that people are like literally, you know, if the big people are making millions out of this format, just chatting with a homie, like,
Yeah.
so I don't know if that totally answers your question. So I'm saying start a podcast. It's the lowest barrier to entry. You can do it not like, and how I would say to do it is create a restraint, like a constraint on it where it's you. Tim Ferriss, I got this from Tim Ferriss. He says, "What would this look like if this were easy?" Because
Yeah.
sometimes when we start, we overcomplicate it. Oh, I need the same camera Tom has. I need the same mic. No, what would this look like if it were easy? Maybe it's just a FaceTime call that you record once a week and you start there, you know,
Right.
and then you upload it to Anchor or whatever platform you want to use. Start there. And so this is honestly how I started my podcast, The Creators Are Brands. I can tell you my framework around it. I was like, I don't really care about scaling it right now. I don't care about building the audience. All I care about is getting the reps in. I want to get
Right.
better at
Yes.
getting guests on the show and asking questions and having an engaging interview. So if I can do those two things for 20 episodes, then I'll worry about how I'm going to market it, and that's exactly where I'm at right now.
Yeah. And you come from the music industry, and like I wanted to be a music producer back in the day, and it's like your first song isn't going to be your hit. Your
No,
100th song isn't going to be your hit.
and honestly, if it is, because I've seen that, I've seen that. If it is, it makes it more difficult because then you have to live up to this standard, and then but you don't have like the skill yet to be able to live up to that consistently. So it's better to take that that gradual arc
Yeah.
into like getting your mastery of creating this type of content.
I think that flows perfectly into the second part of the question I was mentioning is like, okay, you got all these new content creators that are crushing it, but they don't know what to do on the business front. They might be getting hundreds of thousands of views, millions of views. They don't know what to do with it. So let's flip that on its head. Let's say you do have the creativity, you have the content, you're getting good engagement. Then what?
That's a really great question. And I'm putting together content that helps answer that because it's a consistent question that I get. And I think you have to look at what you want this thing to be. Like if you look at a year from today, like what is a win? What is something that you're
Mm.
looking back at and you're most proud of? Because sometimes we just start business ideas or podcast ideas or content ideas because it's like feels cool and fun and exciting right now. But we don't start with the end in mind of like what do we want this to look like? Like, what would my lifestyle be? That's why I'm honestly like starting the podcast in this way. Like, I want to build the podcast around my lifestyle, not make my lifestyle work like based
Yeah.
around the podcast. And like, that's something I've learned over the years. And it comes from, I mean, part of like my journey that I kind of skipped is I used to make funny music videos,
Mm.
like in between Asher and then like working for the brands. And there was kind of like Lonely Island meets like Macklemore type content. And it worked. Like honestly,
Yeah.
like that's the content that the company I saw does right now, or the company I work with right now, and they saw it and they're like, hey, like that's really fun. Can you make that fun video for us? But what I realized as a creator, something that like we need to satiate like our creative output is like um, more of like a consistent flow of putting out your ideas. Like when you make a song in the music industry, at least then, 2012, um, you make the song, right? It has to get mixed, it has to get mastered. You go back and
Yeah.
forth on the lyrics, on the hooks. And then by the time you shoot the music video, it's like 3 months, right? And like I
Yeah.
hated that. I hated that flow of creative output. And for me, what's important to me is like why I love the TikTok and why I love the podcast, it's immediate. Like I can get feedback within a week of like, is this working? Is this resonating? Like how's my delivery? And then you can tweak that. But when you put out a song and it takes 3 months to do that, it's hard to like see where you can improve. But if you're doing it more consistently, you're able to build that creative muscle. So one, think about what this content looks like in a year and then
Mm.
work back from there and like actually like I think James Clear talks about this in one of his tweets. He has the best tweets ever. But like yeah, like figure out what your days want to look like and then find a business that works within that, because sometimes we create these businesses and then it like looks exciting from the outside, but then when you're in it you're like, oh, I actually don't want to like this exciting to me at 1 a.m. still doing this thing. So yeah, start with the end in mind, of like what you want this company to be. And then the other thing is I would say, I learned this from Jack Butcher of Visualize Value. He talks about it, and like some people think that this is will go against this, but he talks about mastering one platform for
Mm.
6 months to 12 months. Like, don't try to be everywhere because each platform has their own rules, has their ways of engagement, has different audiences. And as a solo creator, if you don't have a big team, to get good at that platform, you need to understand how people are engaging and responding. And it's hard to do that for 5 platforms at the same time. So he's
Right.
saying like, don't not be on the other platforms, but really optimize for one platform for 6 to 12 months, get that audience big, and then convert them over to the other platforms.
Yeah, and on that note too, this is something that we've been doing at Record Edit too. Is like Initially, I wanted to take that full blown multi channel approach. I think it's important to caveat that as you should test the other platforms before you go all in on one of them. Because
I,
something
I
really
like that. I like
interesting,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
something interesting I'm noticing is like our shorts are popping off. Like they're near 1,000 views. We're a brand new channel, like not even a month old. 30,
YouTube?
yeah, YouTube. And
Really?
yeah.
You got to teach me your ways.
Well, it's just like the best. I'm finding that like about 20 seconds is the sweet spot to make sure people watch 80 to 90% of it. But then it's got to be the title of it has to be something that people are like actually looking for. It's gonna pop up in the shorts feed. People aren't gonna be able to really search it, but I think it like looks at the text.
So is it like the traditional like podcast short style where there's like a title at the top of like what you're learning and then there's captions underneath? Like what's the format that you're posting?
Not necessarily. It's just like the full vertical 1080 by 1920. Just
Yep.
a straight cut from the show. I'm finding that about 20 seconds is the sweet spot for like optimal view duration. And it has to be something that people want help with. So I think our most popular one right now is from Rochelle Meese, and she was giving a tip on how to book more podcast guests. And it's really super simple tip. Like it's literally just follow up with the person that you emailed, and that's it. And the clip got over 1,000 views already. And like I said, like we're a brand new channel, 36 subscribers at the point of recording this, probably 4 weeks old. Um, I didn't expect that because like I see other creators that like are doing cool stuff, but they're not getting nearly as many views. And I'm like, okay, well, podcasting is like super niche, right? Like, why is this working? And like, what can I do to help them? And I think it really goes back to it has to be like practical tips that people are looking for. And my theory is it looks at whatever YouTube, like whatever you're watching on YouTube, it's trying to serve you up similar content in the shorts just to get you that quick hit of dopamine so that you
Yep.
get back on the platform and watch more videos like whatever you just watched.
Yeah.
Um, but that said, the caveat of like test all the platforms before you just commit to one because your audience might be hanging out somewhere else that you may not even feel comfortable at yet.
Yes.
For
I
example, like
I think that's a good caveat.
yeah, for record edit, I'm noticing like a ton of people on LinkedIn doing similar stuff with like huge followings for that platform. Like I'm talking 10 to 30,000 followers doing like
Yep.
podcast production stuff. But it's like my people are struggling on like Instagram and Twitter and stuff. So it's like, okay, this is telling me I need to spend more time on LinkedIn. Honestly, it seems kind of stuffy and like I never really thought it'd be like my place to be, but I got to figure it out. That said,
Dude,
like shorts are popping off too.
yeah, no, you're right on with that. That is a good take, and I'm going to like that's my experience. So I just to like complement that, I started on YouTube and I was like trying to make long term videos, but it's hard to get discovered and like get escape velocity quickly on YouTube with like traditional 8 to 10 minute long videos. So I was doing that and I was doing that, and they were like pretty good videos. But then I was also like, man, like I'm taking a lot of time to make these videos, and then YouTube Shorts. It was last probably like the beginning of this year. YouTube Shorts was started to like promote that was a feature. I was like, okay, cool. I'll start experimenting with that. I started making them, and they did okay on YouTube Shorts. But since I had them, I was like, all right, this format works for Instagram Reels. So I was like, I'll just start. I had that random account bonus footage. Like I was like, I'll throw them up there too.
Yeah.
And like my second video got 90,000 views, and like and picked up by one of the biggest like filmmaker Instagram channels. Filmmaker. It's called Filmmakers. Like it's
Wow.
like one M. It got millions of views, and I was like, okay, this is the platform I need to be on. So I start posting it on Instagram Reels. Then I'm like, I got these videos. I might as well post them on TikTok. And this is before like, so then I started posting them on TikTok, and then I started like quadrupling my followers on TikTok. So like you said, like yeah, experiment at the beginning. Now I'm like, okay, if since I can't optimize for all platforms at the same time, it's hard as one person and as a solo creator to do that. If there's one platform I'm going to go all in on, it's TikTok. So I go all in on TikTok, optimize for that, really learn the algorithm there, learn how people are engaging, and then I'm going all in on TikTok. Then I take my best moments and I put them on the other platforms just because I don't want it to be like radio silence over there. I still want to like have a little presence. But my main goal is to get this to 100,000, 500,000, a million, and then start like taking the best hits and like kind of optimizing for probably Instagram and Twitter and YouTube from there.
But imagine if you never pivoted to the short form, because like you're crushing it with the short videos.
Bro, thank you, man. I appreciate. I'm having so much fun. I think like you can tell I got like a high energy, and I think that the high energy is like sustainable for like people's attention spans for like 45 seconds. If I did this for like 8 minutes straight, people are like, "Yo, man, you gotta calm down." But I love it, man. It's another great networking tool. Again, the long-term goal is the podcast. Like, but the thing that is giving the most reach right now immediately is the TikTok. But where you build relationships, like deep connection within your industry, is the podcast. And it's also a format that is just like, it's fun to make, man. Like it's a conversation with, like, for me, like my interview style, the people that you work with, I love it. I feel energized when after I finish an episode. I go to my wife. I'm like, I want to record another one. Like, I love the process of creating a podcast. I actually have a hot take on podcasts.
Go
I was
for
thinking about this interview. I'm curious. I want you to answer this question.
Oh, it's for me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I know my answer.
Okay.
And I want all the guests to think about this too, or all the everyone that's listening. If you could go back to high school, right? And you had the decision to do high school exactly as you did it, or you get to every single class that you go into, you get to listen to any podcast that you want for that 4 years of high school. Which one do you think would set you up for your career better?
Bro, it was the podcast. That's what got me out. Like, yeah, podcasting.
Bro, it's not even
Yeah.
dude, when I thought of that question, I was like, oh, it's not even a question. I'm like,
No.
I'm eavesdropping on the most successful people in their field. And they're
Yes.
telling me exactly how they did it. Or I'm listening to this history book or like some book of some topic that I'm not interested in. And it's like delayed 5 years because it takes them forever to get that out. Like, podcasts are real time. Like, I can hear Will Smith talking to Jay Shetty as he's releasing his book, like talking about exactly what he just learned about. I think you guys edited that one too.
Yeah.
But like, that's what I'm saying. Like, someone creates a course. Jack Butcher creates a course. I can hear the next week how he creates that course. Like, dude, we get this access to these winners real time. I'm like, yo, and like it would probably be like, this is what I'm thinking. Like, this is the high school. You get to listen to podcasts and you have to learn how to make a garden. And I think those two things will set you up for your future more than and listen, it's not a knock on high school or teachers. I love educators. I love teachers. My whole family are teachers. It's more the system of like how they need to teach is the thing that I'm kind of calling out in this. But yeah, but it also just shows the value of like how I believe about podcasts.
Oh my God. Yeah, we got to talk about education, just like,
Yeah, dude, just like the feeling of it. Like, I'm like, wait, like that, like I asked myself that question and it was like, oh, instantly. I've learned more in podcast than my college education. That's another thing. That's the next question I had. I said, all right, if I could go back to my college or if like I found out that all of my college teacher, like professors were offering a $300 course, I wouldn't buy it, and I wouldn't tell other people to buy it. You know what I'm saying? If you think about it that way, that's mind blowing. Like
oh my God, yeah.
Like we go for the brand, we don't go for the actual education. And majority of the people go for the brand and not the actual what it's doing to advance your career. Now, I think that they're going to have to catch up. And I know we're going on a tangent, but I love the mind game of saying like, yeah, like you go into your classroom, you get all right, which podcast are you listening today? And you're just going to listen to a podcast. That'd be an incredible education, in my opinion.
Yeah, that would be super cool. If any educators are out there, that should be like a homework assignment kind of thing. You listen to like an hour-long show and take notes because it's crazy. But to kind of wind it back to podcasting and hosting a show, something you mentioned, like connecting with air quote successful people, however you define them, it makes it so much easier. But here's the craziest thing. Like, they want to share what they've accomplished. They're happy to talk to people. It's just like, you got to think there are billions of people in this world. So like it's kind of hard to reach out to busy people if you don't have an exchange of value. If you're providing them with a content marketing vehicle that like they themselves can repurpose and use for their brands, makes the pitch so much easier to chat with people for an hour.
Bro, it's the app, like, I don't like the word hack, but it is the absolute hack, especially in a world where everyone is more remote. Like, for me, I live in the suburbs outside of Philadelphia. I lived in Atlanta, Los Angeles, and New York, and all those times, like, I felt connected, but I've never felt more since I started the podcast.
Mm,
I've never felt more connected.
yeah,
Like, I'm able to have these conversations with like people I truly admire and I'm learning from every single week because of this format. But yeah, like, we can just have these conversations with like-minded people that we admire. And yeah, I mean, it's again, it's not out of the reason, like, I genuinely want to learn from them and make them look good in the process. But like, a great added side effect is you like get to know this person, and
yeah,
yeah, like you and I, like, we're gonna continue to, like, I'm sure a lot of your guests, you continue to have like conversations, like
yeah.
networking opportunities come from it. It's like it's this secret. It's like it has nothing to do with building up, being Joe Rogan. It's about building a network of people that you can collaborate with.
100%. Let's turn the conversation over to creators or brands. I know you already touched on sort of your why for the show, but now let's talk about how. Let's talk about the ins and outs of production, starting with how you find and select your guests.
I do have a strong network in the creator economy, and I've had that for a minute. Um, but when I started, I was like, I had the concept for the show. I was like, the first 10 episodes, I'm not going to lean on any of my friends because I
Mm,
wanted to create a challenge for myself. I was like, I'm only going to ask people that I've never met before, right?
right.
And probably like the first, probably like 8 out of 10 of the first episodes were that. So honestly, how I got the guests were TikTok and Instagram. And
Mm,
what happens is I was putting out content and I knew that I was launching the show. First, oh, actually, I'll tell you a crazy story about that. I was thinking about launching the show.
mm,
And then I was so busy with my day job and the TikTok that I was like, man, like, building a whole brand, starting fresh, like, with a new podcast, like, it takes more than meets the eye to like get everything checked out, like, check all the boxes for how I wanted to do it. Probably overthinking it a little bit, even though
right.
at the beginning I said just do it. I was overthinking it a little bit. So I was like, you know what? What I can do right now is just get better at asking questions. So this is what I started to do. And this is actually why you and I know each other. I started reaching out to people with podcasts and saying, hey, the world wants to know your story. How about I come on your podcast and ask about your story? So I
Yeah.
did that for our friend Jeremy Mary.
Yep.
Then I did that and I'm great friends with Jeremy Mary now. And then I did that for my friends that host Rally Caps, Stephen and Eric. And it's a show like around filmmakers and wedding filmmaking and photography. And I was like, guys, like, let me come on and interview you. And they were like, yo, we love the idea. Is there any way you could do it tomorrow? And like, I've never met them
Nice.
before. Like, I
Nice.
I asked them on a live chat. They were on a live, like, doing a live thing. And
Yeah.
I asked them, and then like the next day, I didn't know anything about them. Like, I was like kind of surface. I didn't. I knew, like, a couple of their videos, but I didn't know much about them personally. And I was like, you know what? Every part of me wanted to make an excuse and say I couldn't do it
Yeah.
because that was overwhelming. I have to interview two people tomorrow, on a pretty big show. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to accept this challenge. And then I did it, and I crushed it. Like, and all I did was I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to follow my curiosity with every question. I'm only going to ask what I want to know because that's like a great way to start, because
Yeah.
you can tell as an audience member that like this person really cares. And in the process, they can live vicariously through my curiosity and my wonderment about these answers. And at the end of the show, they were like, dude, like, how can we work together in the future? So a couple of weeks later, I was like, all right, I want to launch a podcast, and I can't launch it unless I have an editor. So does anyone out there want to help me edit this thing? And Steven, who I interviewed on the show, was like, yo, can I help you edit it? And
Nice,
I was
nice.
like, let's run it up. So that was part of the process. But after those interviews, I realized I was like, I love doing this. I love this format. I love asking people questions. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just nosy. Um, so I did that, and I was like, all right, I really want to build a show around this. So I started doing it, and then you know me, I'm making the bonus footage TikToks and the bonus footage Instagrams. So anytime someone would engage, so I would get people following me or liking my videos or commenting. And anytime someone that had an account that I was like, I want to learn from them, I genuinely want to learn from them, I would either respond to their comment, be like, hey, I'm starting a podcast, would love to hear more about your story. Please DM me if you'd be interested. So I was putting out the content, they were engaging, and then I would just naturally follow up with it. And then they would be like, dude, definitely, let's do it. And it's just like, I'd say 50%, that might be going high, 30% of the people said, yeah, let's do it. And then here's the beauty though. Once you get it off the ground, so I got like 7 people scheduled. JT Barnett, Sean Ulashin, Noah Brierly, all people that I keep in contact with. JT Barnett and I, we've been talking about like working together like in a business sense too from all of this. But here's the beauty. Once you start putting them out, and if people can tell that you really care about what it is that you are creating, people start wanting, like, requesting to be on the show. So now I'm getting people asking me. I'm 9 episodes ahead now. I got to edit all of these. But what happens is once you get those like 5 to 10 out, I remember the beginning, I had to like really sell it, like what the vision was going to be. So it takes a little bit there, but like once you get like to 5 to 10, people are like, oh, I get it. I see what he stands for. I see what he cares about. I'd love to be a guest on his show. He really cares about his guests. And I think that's important. I think a part of the process that I see that you guys can pay attention to, and Bradley's company does a great job of it, is really making them look great in the clips. Like, make it like, I'm like, yo, I want this person to feel like a star when I put this clip out. That like their knowledge is like is so helpful, and it just makes them look good. And then that clip becomes a digital business card that then they share on their account. And then more people, like-minded people, say, "Oh, on Tom's podcast, he talks to these types of people. I'm that type of person." And then they reach out to want to be part of the show. So that's how I get the guests. Do you want me to go deeper into that? Because I'm kind of going on a rant. Do you want me to go into the actual production process?
Yeah. That was going to be my next question. Is like equipment. What do you use to record? But I wanna just touch on something for everyone listening that Tom had mentioned prior. Is like the clips are the first touch point. If you think of it sort of like a sales funnel, it's like that's the discovery mechanism, and then you're sliding in through the DMs. They're checking out the long form show, and then you go in to book them. Like it's a really streamlined process when you think about it.
Yo, talk about the first touch points. I'm going to go off on a little tangent. I'm
Go for
actually
it.
giving you a run for your money because like you got to keep reeling the podcast in. But for anyone that's listening, I think that you can get a sense that like I love storytellers. I love because I have so much empathy for the individual that has the guts to put their ideas out there and say, hey, world, judge the shit out of me. You know what I'm saying? Like, because that's what it feels like every single time. And you got to have thick skin, and you got to really believe in yourself. And it's really difficult and like foggy at the beginning. And I'm going to tell you more about like people like, I've had some like business success, some like, viral success in certain content, but the biggest success is the relationships that I've been able to build. Like, we met Scooter Braun from putting video clips up of a dude freestyling in a basement, right? Scooter Braun's the biggest music manager in the world. Like, I met him in 2007 because of that, right? Then, fast forward, I met my 3 people in my wedding party from putting out content. They reached out to me. They reached out to me in the early 2000s saying like, 2010, like, yo, we love the style of content. Let's do a writing session. I met them. We clicked. We became friends. I'm going to one up this. I met my current employer from putting out a rap video, right? Like talking about putting out content top of funnel, like that first touch point. Yeah, here's the craziest kicker. If you want to say, does Tom really believe in putting out content? I met my wife from a tweet.
No way.
Like, dude, I met my wife from a tweet. Her friend followed my Twitter. She saw the content. And so like she saw the content and like I was DJing at the time. And they were like, "Yo, we gotta go." Like, I met my wife as a DJ, but if I didn't put out that tweet, like I'm
Yeah.
talking about, like, but like
Man.
her friend followed me because of the music videos that I was making, and then I met you. Look at this.
Yeah.
I'm talking to you. Like like I think like we look from the outside and be like, "Oh, I can never have this podcast make 20,000." Downloads a month, or even 3,000 downloads a month. But what you can do is you can meet specific people that like you build amazing relationships with that support your goals and your missions in this wild world. So yeah, I don't know why I went on that tangent. I was just like thinking out loud on that. The
Man.
production process. Shure, the Shure microphone, 100% my favorite. They're not paying me, but I am talking to them about having them pay me to do it.
Awesome.
So I love this mic because it's a USB. I record all my short videos through this and my podcast. It's a USB, so I can plug it right into my computer, but it's also an XLR. So if I have to be mobile and go interview someone in person, I can use it for that as well. I have 2 lights. I had a friend, Danny Gewurz, come over to my basement and set them up. I'm not a super technical dude, but it's basically I have this white wall and he has this light bouncing off the wall. So you see it like on the side of my face, right? And then I have a little accent light behind me. That, and then I use Riverside, and then I download the links. Riverside is great when it works, and then I work with an editor. So I work with Steven from Rally Caps, and now I'm working with a new guy. Steven's gotten pretty busy, and like he's helping me out. So I appreciate him for doing it, and then I also edit probably like a third of the videos, and then I put them out. I make the thumbnails. My main focus is, again, I told you it was reps. It was just getting them out, but now I'm optimizing it for the following. Then I look at YouTube analytics after I put it out for a week, and I see on YouTube analytics which clips have the longest retention time within the full podcast. So, Noah Brierly, I just put a clip out on him. He's a TikToker, and he talks about how long your TikTok video should be. So, more people, I could see that were watching that in the YouTube analytics. So then I go in and I make a clip out of that moment, and then I put it out, and then I rinse and repeat.
I like the data first approach.
I'm not usually a data first guy, but I know that I need to be. I go off my gut instinct too much sometimes. But yeah, there's I feel like that is just like, yeah, if people are responding to that, let's see if they can respond to it on another platform. And questions wise, there's kind of a cheat code around like the type of guests that I have on my show, because they're all content creators. So they're all good on camera and they all like talking about themselves. So I don't really have to think of much as far as research. They also put out all of their thinking in their content. So I scroll through their 20 most recent clips and like just get a feel for who they are. And then I pull questions that I'm genuinely curious about. I'll give you an example. I was doing questions, preparing for questions for Esprit Devora, who's a big podcaster with women in tech and tech in LA. She's she specializes in podcasting, and she's like creating like a community around it. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go deep in this conversation around podcasting. It's basically essentially what you're asking me about, like very similar conversation. So I had all these questions. I had like 20 questions. I was going through her content. Then I saw this one video, and the video was her saying her process for creating a podcast. And it was like the 4 Ps. It was like the pre-production, the production, and the presentation. I was like, boom, that's the outline for the interview.
Boom.
I spend the first 10 minutes on the first P. The set like there's 3 questions for each of them. And that's sort of how I see it. I try to build like an outline beforehand of like what I want the listener to experience. And like I'm like, that's perfect. Like they have a perfect outline. That's a masterclass. If she can give us 3 hot takes on each of those Ps, then there's a nice cohesive concept there.
Let's dive deeper into that. What do you mean by sort of trying to keep the listener transformation in mind? How do you go about scripting questions like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, man, it's just really selfish. It's like I consider myself a journalist where I'm not really an expert. I'm a journalist that I want to know myself, or I want my like the version of me that is 10 years to know myself. You know, like something that I know will benefit someone. And as you get deeper into your space, you'll see more trends of questions come up. Like people respond to my videos and they say like, "Oh, what about this?" Like that kind of tucks back in your psyche, the back of your mind, like, oh, I know there's a market for that, and people want to know that. But I think you have a the way you started this podcast is an exact example, and I do this with my guests too. I said, like, who is this podcast for? And you said this is someone that is like curious about starting a podcast. And they have like some information around it and they want to like figure out if it's the right move for them and what the next step is. So I'm like, okay, I know exactly who I'm talking to. And I think about that. Like that was the same question that I had in my mind when thinking of the questions for Esprit, or like someone like Noah. Someone like Noah Brierly, who's a big TikToker. What I cycled that through was like, all right, like I believe that there's a lot of TikTokers out there that have the same like no knock on Noah, but like has the same like creativity and the same like means and capability that he has to make these videos. But a lot of them get caught in their limiting beliefs.
Mm.
So I was like, I want to talk to the people that are out there that like have the resources to be able to do it, but aren't doing it for some reason. And after this call, I want people to be like, I'm making my first 10 videos today.
Yeah.
And people hit me up and said that. Like, yo, I heard that video and I'm like, oh my gosh, if he can do it, like, why can't I do it? Like, that's what I want people to feel. So yeah, I think about that person. You know, with any product, that's how you should be thinking about. If you're writing copy for a company, it's not about the product, it's about who the product's for when you're thinking about writing that copy.
100%. Taking it back to creators of brands, is there anything besides the clips that you're doing to promote the show, like after it releases?
No, but I have a strategy in mind. Um, Honestly, I've been pretty lazy with that because the most reach that the best thing that I've been doing to market my podcast is to literally make the clips to build my platform on TikTok. Because now that's at 40,000 and the bigger audience there, all of my clips are aligned with the same information and questions I'm asking people on the podcast. So I'm seeing the vertical opportunity there. So that's my main marketing channel is like, all right, the clips are building me the platform to be able to promote back to the podcast. And that's like the real goal. I mean, you look at all the YouTubers, what are they all doing now? They're realizing that it's hard to stay consistent with these videos every single week, like thinking of new ideas,
Yeah.
but they're all from like, you know, all the name any big YouTuber, they're all making a podcast right now. And like, that's where they can batch content. They can be consistent with it. They can make sponsors happy. So my main thing is like, yes, for marketing is the TikTok, but then building and growing the TikTok. But then I'm working out the strategy of trying to figure out like because I don't know, like this is a new space to me. But I see that like podcasts usually aren't types of, unless there's clips, the types of, I think honestly clips are the best way to go. But doing some sort of exchange with people that have a newsletter in my space. So basically take Publish Press, Colin and Samir, or someone else, Nat Eliason, or like a ConvertKit or something like that, and be like, listen, I want to do a trade with you. I will give you 5 sponsorship spaces in my podcast for the next 2 months, but can you put me in 3 of your newsletters?
Nice.
Kind of do a trade that isn't money for a sponsorship,
Digital
but
bartering.
yeah, digital bartering. I haven't done that. It
That's
was my
smart.
friend's. It was my friend's idea. We haven't put that in action because I had reps in mind. I was like, I just want to get better at this. But now I feel like I got the muscle, I got the flow, I got the creative process down. Now let's scale this bad boy.
Nice.
I'm curious what you think. Like, so my podcasts are around an hour long. I've been thinking about getting them down to 30 minutes.
Yes.
I'm curious with your understanding of the space. What would you suggest?
Yeah, so my business partner Dustin Knaus, he heads up our news show that drops on Fridays, and he found in a recent Nielsen report, or Nielsen's like the big like they compile all the data from the previous year and put it all in one document. And a trend we're seeing in podcasting is that episodes are getting shorter, we think it has to do, this is like me and Dustin's opinion now. It's like, we think it's because clips are gaining so much more traction that people have a stronger filter now of what's good, what's not good, what do they want to see, what do they don't want to see. And with that, combined with COVID, people aren't driving as much to work and stuff like that. This is making podcasts shorter. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It means that you could redirect your energy. Because we just had Jacob Kelly on the show, and he said that he's running it like 90 minutes. I asked him why, and he didn't really have a good reason. It's just like, that's what I started at. Like, it felt okay, but now it like feels kind of long to me. And I'm like, yeah. From like trends in the industry, we're seeing that shows are getting shorter. So between 30 to 45 minutes really is the sweet spot. Now, you can run that full hour, and what I do recommend is like trying to have more than less. That way you can cut it down. So it's like carpentry. If you have a 2x4, you're building a
Yep.
house, you can always cut more off, but you can't add
Yeah,
it
yeah,
back on.
yeah. Yeah, I'm with that. I'm with that. Yeah, like, and here's something here's my thinking around it too. And I do this with my podcast, and I think you did a good job of it. I think a lot of like podcasters when they start, um, their first ones, they're like getting the whole backstory of the guest. Like,
Yeah.
no one wants the full backstory. Give me the three things that I need to know that this person's legit.
Yes.
And then I trust you as the host that you brought someone of high quality to my world that I can trust them as an expert. So like that, like skipping the backstory and then going deep into one topic. So for
Right.
example, instead of talking to a TikToker about his whole trajectory of like when he started to now, be like, yo, you need to listen to this guy. He specializes in this, da, 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 and then literally just pick one thing. Length of TikTok videos, like literally for 20 minutes straight, talk about different, or like, go specific into one topic, or like JT Barnett, I would have been like, exactly how should brands be working with TikTokers? So when someone gets to that, they have like a 25-minute jam-packed conversation, exactly the transformation that they want to get. I'm getting closer to doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just like my way of thinking around it. I don't know. We're going on some tangents, and I love it. You can tell I love podcasting. I'm starting another one. Well, I'm
Sweet.
starting another one. It's going to be on my buddy's channel, or we're talking about it. But he's a big YouTuber in the filmmaker space. He already has a huge following, and it's going to be around movies. So
Nice.
we're gonna review like old movies. We're gonna give each other an assignment. Watch a movie this week, and then we just review it. And like, I have no technical like cinematography background. I'm more of a storyteller, and he's more of a cinematographer, filmmaker. So you get our two. He's gonna come over here. We're gonna record like 4 episodes. Be good for the month. Batch them. That's the beauty of the podcast format. And then yeah, like that. Like, and I'm like, yo, that sounds so fun to me. Like, that's such a fun concept.
Before you pull the trigger, let me share one more piece of like industry trends that we're seeing.
Yeah.
There's every show on Netflix has a corresponding podcast called a companion show. Rochelle Meese that we just had on the show, she's doing a Bachelor recap show, and they recently
Love it.
signed with a network. So I think maybe push that
Oh,
5 degrees the other way.
to Netflix
Not
movies.
not I wouldn't even recommend movies, shows, something that is coming out on a weekly cadence that you guys can just hop
Yeah.
on that. And then you can make clips. Those clips are going to get picked up. The show is going to grow. It falls under fair use. And then
Yeah.
next thing you know, if he's already a really popular guy, like the odds of that taking off is even high. Because like, imagine if you did Squid Game right now.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about Squid
Yeah.
Game.
Well, that and also like, yeah, I think like he loves classic old movies, so I think we'd figure out how to do like, maybe it's like when Netflix, because Netflix has those movies, those shows with like recaps, like how these movies were made, type things. I think you're right. I think a good combination of both,
Yeah.
where it's just like what's current, and like maybe we do like a series that is like, talking about this specific show right now. But yeah, like I just love the format of like, yo, like that's a possibility. Like two friends can get together. Like, dude, like I have a friend that's creating, like, he loves football, and he was like, yo, what should I do? Like, I'm trying to find a job. I was like, honestly, start giving hot takes in a podcast. He just got a job with Madden as like
Wow.
as like a spokesperson.
Nice.
Like, dude, it works. You got to put yourself out there. Like people just care, and like, yo, the barrier to entry for like production quality is so like I don't want to say low, but it's like accessible.
Yeah.
People are used to seeing people on their cell phones talking to the camera. I actually admire, like, I feel like I'm cheating. I got this nice mic in the camera, but I'm like, sometimes I'm like, does that go against me in certain cases?
Yeah.
Because people see the production value and they're like, oh, there must be more money behind this. Like, I don't, like people like the raw, just like, talking to their homie on the camera. So I'm experimenting with it. I'm loving the process. But podcasts, man, it's a timeless form of content. Like, they're gonna be around in 20 years. Like, TikTok, probably not.
100%. All right. If you had to start your show over all like from scratch today, what would you do differently?
The truth is that I did start this podcast 2 to 3 years ago, and I was so busy with my day job but I'm not really confident with like my voice and like who I was.
Mm.
Um, and I also didn't have a clear direction of what the show was about. That I learned a lot for, like, I kind of did start over for this one. So what I would say is, like, be clear about who it is you're talking to, like, who the listener is on this show beforehand. And it might take 10 episodes to figure that out, but, like, at least have that in the back of your mind. Two would be, then I felt like I had to do these crazy pitches to get someone on my show. I think you got to keep it short
Mm.
and be real and give one example of, like, what this show is going to do for them if you don't have any examples of like any content that you've made. But, like, people will buy into your way of thinking and they'll believe who you are. If you're just genuine about it, like, they'll be like, yeah, like, I would love to have like, I see big people having conversations with people that have, like, no followings. Like, people want to be part of this. So shoot your shot. That's what I'm doing more now. Like, I just ask people and know that them saying no is no reflection of me.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, I'll tell you some funny stories. Some people that have said, like, didn't, like, kind of ghosted me at the beginning. Now that I have big guests on it, they're following up and being like, yo, I'm sorry, I didn't see this. Oh yeah, you didn't see it. Yeah, get out of here. That would be, and honestly, this microphone, I love this Shure microphone. I would say, the first time, this isn't, like, I would just get this mic. I just feel like, I just think it's a great podcasting. There's tons of podcasting mic. There's is that the Technica?
Yeah, the ATR.
Yeah, that one's also incredible. That one's
Yeah.
like what, like $50 now?
I think it's like 60. I don't remember, but one of my videos I did a side by side with this and the Shure SM7B, the $400 version of like what you got.
Yeah.
This one's better.
Dude, it's better. That's the other one that I have too. That the USB, because I traveled a lot, the USB ended up getting jammed, and I had to get a new one. And I was like, because I wanted it to, like, look sexy in videos too, and this kind of has,
Yeah.
like, a little more, like, boldness behind it. But that one is incredible to start out. Tim Ferriss still uses that one when he travels, which is crazy. This guy doesn't need any more money ever again. And like, he has like one of the most entry level. I know Pat Flynn promotes that microphone. So, like, just get something and stick with it. I'm trying to think of what I would do differently. I'll tell you something. I started to think, like, 5 episodes in, I started to think about, like, monetizing it too early. And, like, once I started thinking about monetizing it, it started distracting me from actually making good content. And then, like, I started, like, hit a lull where I was, like, having conversations with brand partners. I was like, no, like, just focus on the content, and then the right monetization strategies will reveal themselves. And that's exactly what's happened. Like, people that, like, are, partner with the guests, they're like, yo, that's a cool podcast. We would love to be part of it. And you start to attract the right people into your world. I was doing a little too much outreach at the beginning. I think there's a point when you can do that, but, like, I think that's after you master your creative process, who you're talking to. Oh, that's the other thing, creative process. Have a cadence. Pick, like, a day of the week where you record podcasts. Pick a day of the week where you edit them, where you can just, like, chunk this out, and you know that you're putting the blinders on that day, and it's, like, built into your schedule instead of, like, especially if you have a full-time job or side hustles, like, building that in so you know, like, where your headspace is on those days. Like, all right, I'm recording a podcast. All the space is going to be set up, and so I don't know. I find that helps me to have a rhythm around it. It's like going to the gym. Like when you go at this certain times, it just becomes part of your lifestyle. So like creating content now is like doing the podcast. This is what I say. It's like shooting hoops for me. I just have fun doing it, but I build it into my schedule so I know the days that I'm going to be doing it. The one question too that I learned from Andrew Warner, and I said at the beginning of this one, is what would make this a win for you? Before every single guest, ask them what would make this a win for you, and then you'll get a response. Like for him, he was coming out with a book at the time. So I learned that, like, okay, he wants to promote his book. Like that would be a big win at the end of this podcast if people knew about his book. Yeah, I think that that's like a good way to center your convos. But hopefully, people got some value out of this conversation. I love what you're doing, man. I'm honestly, I'm excited for ways that we can partner in creating content and working with your company to get these clips down because I know how valuable they are, and I want to focus more on just the podcast, like doing the interviews and
Yeah.
and that portion, and being able to offload and work with pros to make the rest of the content.
Amazing. I 100% agree with everything you just said. I'm gonna start asking people what would make it a win for them as well. Like
Yeah.
that's huge.
I got a question for you. How
Yeah.
can I improve my podcast? Or no, no, no. Yeah, how could I, off top, from the outside looking in, is there like one tip that you would give that like you might see, or there's a potential of like a way that I can improve the let's say the reach of the podcast?
I think you're doing a good job with the reach. My kind of like gut reaction is you need a better way of turning TikTok followers into longer term like leads essentially. So I think we were chatting yesterday. You're putting together like some training materials
Yep.
and giving them away for an email address. And we just had a really talented marketer on the show. His name's Dan Morris. He's also the director of Podcast Magazine. That was like one of his main themes for the show is like podcasters need to build an email list because like
Mm,
Facebook was down for like a day or two
people
a few
spazzed.
weeks ago. Yeah, think about all those guys that are they think they're so cool running like Facebook ads and all this, and like the platform is just taken away. Same kind
Yep.
of thing can happen with TikTok. Like, what if
Yeah.
TikTok shuts down like Vine did? You
Yeah.
know, but the one thing that doesn't change is email addresses.
Yep.
And it doesn't seem sexy. It's not cool. But if you can just build a list of thousands of email addresses, you're basically set because you're building that network. You've got customers you can
That's the
sell products
relationship.
to. You got clients that are waiting for you. You've got goodwill with thousands of people. And the odds are they're not going to change their email addresses.
Yep. Cool. I love it, my man.
Yeah. Awesome. Before we wrap up, or to wrap up, I always love asking people who their moonshot guest is
Will Smith.
and why. Why Will Smith?
uh, yo, I see Will. I'll tell you. There's a lot of reasons why Will. In high school, I was a pretty insecure dude, and then I started watching his show, and his character that he played in the Fresh Prince of Bel Air is someone that's like, he's just super confident. But the coolest thing about him is whenever he gets turned down, like by like a girl or like a business idea or like a pitch to Carlton, like he just laughs it off. Right, he would just laugh it off. He would like do a spin move and like just keep it going, and he never seemed phased. Like
Yeah.
when anyone would say no, like he would keep his spirits, he would keep his confidence. So I started. It's a weird tactic. The guy talks about it in the book Alter Ego. I forget his name, but he was like, "Yo, like a lot of like big performers, like they envision themselves as like someone else to like
Yeah.
and then over time you develop the habits of that someone else. So I started envisioning myself as like Will Smith, like Fresh Prince of Bel Air, like, and then dude, I became I don't want to say super confident, but definitely more confident. And I developed like some strong friend groups. I'm obviously an extroverted person, and like I like when you're extroverted, you put yourself out there more. There's more room for you to be like shot down. And I just started feeling more confident, like even when I was shot down by ideas that I put out there. And that's honestly something I attribute a lot of my success to. Like I'm not like I believe like my family, like my younger brother, my older brother, they're both more creative than me. But like The only difference is I shoot 10,000 more shots. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like they're cool with they're super happy with their career decisions and everything. But I'm saying like from a creative end, they're like, "Oh, Tom, you're so creative." I'm like, "I'm not creative. I just like have this thick skin of like I know that stuff's supposed to be messy at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah.
People are supposed to say no, and that's how you learn about yourself." So at that pivotal age, I started to like really fall in love with the character, but then also learning about more later on in his career, he's big into the self-development space. He talks about the book The Alchemist. He talks about these mindset principles. He talked about this lesson where um placing a brick as perfectly as you can. Like,
Yeah.
don't try to
Yeah.
build a whole wall. Place this brick as perfectly as you can, and like thinking about content that way. Like everything I do, I'm like he's helped me so much just by who he is and like the little insights. And then he's the ultimate creator. He's started out as an artist in Philly, right? I live right outside of Philly. Then then he got into TV. Then he became a movie star. Now he's a YouTuber and a TikToker. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I just think he's a fascinating dude. Yeah, he's someone that like I think is awesome, and he's also like super vulnerable now, coming out with his like flaws and his insecurities, and he's got a book coming out, so it would be perfect timing. So Will Smith, if your team is watching this, let's have this conversation. I'll ask you
Amazing.
questions no one else has asked.
Perfect. Perfect. I love that. That something you said right there about the mindset stuff. The shift that really helped me. I don't remember who said it, but it's like there's only one failure in life. And the only failure, the only true failure in life is failure to start. Everything else is just like a learning opportunity. And like once that really clicked, it's like, like,
Yo,
damn, I can't be afraid to make as many mistakes as possible because I'm just going to come out a better person.
yeah, dude, right on.
Yeah.
That dude, I couldn't be more aligned with that. And like I've been putting out content around how to create short videos, and I get all these questions of people asking me about the technical aspects. Like, what do you use? How do you do your editing? Like, da 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 da. And I'm like, I realize I'm like, that's actually not going to change your ability to be a storyteller. It's like buying nice Jordans. They're not going to make you a better basketball player. Like, so
Yeah.
what I'm trying to do is I'm creating, I don't know if it's a freebie or a course or like an ebook, but like I want to create frameworks for how people should think about their first 10 pieces of content, because that's such a critical phase for where you're developing your habits, like how you should interpret feedback loops when you put it out, right? Because it's nerve wracking putting out those first 10 pieces of content, like how you should interpret that data, knowing that like they're all gonna flop. You know what I'm saying? And like how to keep going and how to understand them, because people see big creators blowing up and they expect that out the gate, but they don't realize all of the mess ups and all of like the starts and stops they did at the beginning in those first 10 videos. So I'm building like mental frameworks, how you should think about putting out your content that has nothing to do with the technical side.
Well, you've got a guide now, right?
I got a guide. It's
Okay.
it covers some of that. It's a bunch of freebies, like little like webinar lessons that I've made over the last like 7 months as I've been learning out loud. So I'm like, oh, I learned this, I'll just throw it in there. So it's a little bundle. It's Tom Boyd at tomboyd.co/tips. And that's where you can download that if you want to hop in on that.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Where can people find you online?
At bonus footage on TikTok and Instagram, and creatorsarebrands.com. And that's the podcast, baby. Let's hang out. I would love to hear about your feedback and if you have any guest suggestions. And then let's get this podcast popping so then I can pay Bradley and his team to make clips and edit my podcast.
Awesome, man. Thank you. See you.
All right, brother.